Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner of our women's national football team. Out-believe together and we can go anywhere.
Right, it is Thursday Night Football on a Friday night with John Giles. John, good evening to you. How are you?
I'm okay, Ger.
Good to talk to
yourself?
you. I'm very well, thanks very much.
Haven't been on with you for a while.
It's just like old times. It's great. And plenty to talk about. It's a really interesting weekend of fixtures. I actually wanted to start on a couple of the managers who are in a bit of trouble at the moment. So Brendan Rodgers last night in the aftermath of the Man United game said some stuff that would suggest he's not very happy, and clearly he hasn't been happy with the board. So this weekend he's got a big game at Brighton on Sunday. Aston Villa are playing Manchester City on Saturday, and then after that their next fixture is against each other. It's Rodgers and Gerrard, and there's going to be a lot of talk about these two over the next week or so because they're both in a sticky situation. So let's start with Brendan Rodgers. Were you surprised at how strong his comments were last night after his team got beaten?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. In fact, I think they could have been stronger because he's come out and said, like before the season started, I think the owners were saying, look, we don't have any money and we won't be buying any players. And as we know, he's lost one of his best players to Chelsea.
Yeah.
You know? So I think Brendan is in a very, very awkward position that a lot of managers get into and they can't say it publicly. Do you know what I mean, Ger?
Yeah.
Whereas I think Brendan's done a fantastic job at Leicester. And they told us that we've no money. They'd have to sell players. Now, when you're in a position as manager, in that position, that's really, really trouble. Big trouble. And I wouldn't be surprised if Brendan said, right, I'm out of here. Because I think he's also odds on to get the sack, Ger.
He is, yeah.
You know, now he might have a contract where he doesn't want to do that and get paid up. That could be the position. But I think in the long run, he's no chance. And it's the similar situation that Scott Parker was in. You know, Scott Parker at Bournemouth.
It sounded like Scott Parker was daring the board to sack him afterwards, and their statement when they sacked him wasn't the usual, oh, we wish Scott all the best. It was like, look, everybody has to be on the same page. Nobody can come in here and tell us what to do the way Scott Parker was doing it. So they had they'd broken up.
Oh, they broke, but I'd be on Parker's side on that. I think don't forget, he performed a miracle getting them up last year. And what he, I believe, was saying, look, we have to improve the team if we're going to stay in the Premiership. And I think there was the director of football, which is usually in all these clubs, and said, no, we have to go with what we have. Right? Again, I think he was in a position where he would have been better off saying, well, thanks very much, but I can't work under those conditions. Because they said it wasn't a 9-0 defeat at Liverpool that got him sacked. He was being cheeky, more or less.
Pretty much, yeah.
You know, like, what did he expect? For him to say, no money, we're not going to buy any blood, just got you up, but we're not going to try to improve. You know? Now, as you said, I think he might have hung on to get a payoff in that situation. But it wouldn't be short of a few bob, Jerry, you know?
No, I do wonder about the next job is obviously in everybody's head when you're a manager. We had David Myler on today and he said he was doing his coaching badges, and the first thing that they say to you when you're doing your coaching badges is you're going to get sacked. Every manager gets sacked at some point. So I'm sure if you're in one of those jobs at the moment, you have a little eye always on, well, what's going to be next if I get sacked? Do you think Scott Parker is somebody who's done himself any favours with the next ownership, or is that the type of thing that gives them pause for thought when they're hiring you?
Well, there's two ways of looking at it, Jerry. He did get them promotion, without spending any money. So anybody any club would have to look at him and say, regardless of how he fell out with the directors, because it didn't back him, but he did get them promotion without spending any money. That's a miracle job. And after that, if the board are not backing you when you go into the Premiership, then you're in trouble before you start. But what they're saying was that it wasn't because he was saying that, because they got beaten and that and didn't do well. He was being cheeky, more or less. That's what we're saying, because he was kicking up about what have we got to do? You know, we've got to buy new players if we want to last in the Premiership.
Yeah.
So they sacked him for being cheeky. Not for the results, which is most unusual. Because what they'd expect, and I think it's happened over the past in managerial situations, managers can't say anything. You know, they're not even though things are wrong. Look, Brendan Rodgers is saying a few things at the moment. Now, it might get to the stage where they say, "Right, Brendan, you have to go. We're not putting up with this cheek." You know, that could easily be the situation. But when they're not spending the money, the owners in the club don't like the manager. Actually, just totally dislike him for telling the truth.
You're not supposed to point it out.
Yeah.
So,
and he's only protecting himself, I think, Scott Parker. You know, he's saying to the football community, "I've no chance in this job. I'm not being backed to do it." And that's why I think a club who are desperate for a manager, a good manager, could go for him.
Okay.
And Brendan, if he did the same thing.
Well, yeah, that's it, right? So Rodgers was saying our target is 40 points. You know, this is a group who nearly qualified for the Champions League, who's won the FA Cup, who have overachieved, you would say, in recent seasons. Is Rodgers daring the board to sack him a little bit as well, or do you think they can work this out from here?
I think he could well be looking to be sacked. I wouldn't be surprised because his comments are quite hard in relation to most managers. Most managers have to put up with it, you know.
Yeah.
But I think Brendan has been in the game a fairly long time, Ger, to know what's going on. In other words, if he says nothing and they won't back him, right, and they're relegated, which they could be relegated, as we know, then other clubs will say, well, he's done a good job up to a point, but he got relegated. You know.
Yeah.
I think if he left now, I don't think let's put it this way: there's always clubs in trouble, yeah. And him, with his background and record, he wouldn't be far off getting another job if he wanted to, and maybe make his own conditions before he goes in. That's the problem managers have, because once a club is sacked a manager, they have about 100 applicants for the job, and these applicants will be a bit desperate. They can't make the conditions that they want to do the job, right? But Brendan has done a good job. I mean, he won the cup with Leicester. He's kept them up there. They spent very little money, and he knows he's in the game. The writing's on the wall for Brendan, in my opinion, because they're not going to buy players. And he's in trouble already. So,
if you're thinking about all those points you made, right? I just want to bring in Graham Potter to this, right? So Graham Potter is 2 years younger than Brendan Rodgers, but at the moment, all the conversation around Graham Potter is, wow, what a progressive young manager he is. You know, still entering the peak years of his life. Whereas actually, what I think maybe people are in the short term nature of football, it's like, oh, Rodgers he's struggling a bit there, but actually, like, Brendan Rodgers might be doing a brilliant job at the moment at Leicester under the circumstances. And, and these two managers aren't that different, really, are they?
Well, I think Brendan has done a little bit more than Graham Potter. Graham Potter's doing a great job, and they're selling players as well. You know, they've sold 4 or 5 players for a lot of money over the last couple of years, and he's still doing it. He's fantastic. You know, now, but what he would be hoping for, I think, is that one of the clubs, bigger clubs than he's in, might sack a manager, and he'd be in for that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because all clubs are not going to be doing well. So, like if you're a club like Leicester, for example, actually have more resources than Potter's club. Would he go to them? You know, would they want? I'd say they would want him, but would he get the conditions?
That's the thing
that he would require. But the thing is, though, he's not getting the conditions at Brighton, because they're selling players and he's performing miracles. You know what I mean? Like what could happen there, and happens in football, they start losing a few matches, right? And next thing, he's under pressure. He's got to get out where the going is good.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you like Brendan. Unless they want to pay off, Ger. You know, like Brendan might think, well, I'm not going to ask to get away. I'm not going to resign. because I've got 2 years left on my contract. I want to get a payoff before I go. And I think anybody that's doing that in football, man, is wrong, because they're losing their reputation and they're losing the possibility of getting a better position if and when they're not working. Sure.
Yeah, the one thing is Eddie Howe does have a relegation on his CV, but he took a good bit of time out of the game and waited for an opportunity, and obviously has an opportunity now where there's loads of money. And we can talk about the wrongs of where that money comes from anytime. Just to bring Stephen Gerrard into all this, right?
Yeah.
Do you think he's going to survive as the Villa manager? Because the mood around Birmingham is pretty toxic at the moment.
Well, he's under pressure. There's no doubt about that. But like the Villa crowd are noted for their impatience, Ger. That's what I've been told anyway. The Villa crowd are very, very hard to please, and he hasn't made a good start. So they're giving him the slow hand clap coming off the pitch now. But it's very, very early days. I mean, he's only just taken over the job, and he's had a couple of bad results, like all managers have at some stage. So you'd have to give him a chance. But that's my my take on it. But the supporters can be very, very, very forceful in their way to get rid of a manager. I think the start has been disappointing. But if you look at Manchester United, they've won 3 matches on the bounce, and that new manager is getting terrible stick. But it's changed a bit now. He's up the table in that. I think it'd be too early, in my opinion, to get up to sack Gerrard. But the crowd need a few good results to get off his back.
Yeah.
But that's football. You get it all the time. I mean, if you look at Notts Forest, for example, I think at Christmas last year, they were at the bottom of the table. But they stuck with the manager, and he's done a great job. He's got the promotion, and he's got a hard job. It's a very, very difficult job. Like, you could have a bad time, like West Ham, for example, have made a bad start. David Moyes will be under pressure. That's the way it works. But I think to go back to the original talk that we were having, Ger, if Brendan Rodgers is in the position he's in, and he's in a very, very delicate position, he's already been told they don't have any money to spend, and his reputation at stake, it could well be that the best thing he could do while his reputation is still good is to say, I'm sorry, but I can't put up with this situation. I'm out.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have to wait that long, because another club is going to be in trouble, Ger.
Well, Villa, West Ham, any of those jobs could be up in the next 3 or 4 months, depending on results. In the next 3 or 4 weeks.
So you're better quitting with your reputation intact. Whereas if Brendan stays on for another 2 or 3 months there, and it goes the way it's going, he could be sacked. So he'd be less likely to get the West Ham job if David Moyes is sacked. It's a tough game, Ger. Management, it's a tough game, because somebody has to be at the bottom of the table, and like in Graham Potter's situation, I think he's performed miracles, and certainly, I think, for example, if Rodgers did go, he'd be one of the main targets that they would have, along with 1 or 2 or 3 other clubs. Ger.
Yeah, and it's so early in the season. There's 5 games played, and the difference between Brighton and Leicester is 9 points, and they could easily make that up over the course of the next 33 games, and you wouldn't be terribly surprised if Leicester and Brighton finish side by side, given the quality of players in both teams. But we do know that, and particularly because the first decision has been made, because Scott Parker provoked the board into sacking him, there'll be a rush. I think there'll be more managers sacked early this year than in previous years, because bigger money has been spent in the transfer window, but also once one team starts sacking managers, everybody else starts to get a little bit trigger finger itchy on that. And
well, miracles are expected, you see, from the owners. Yeah. Miracles are expected, and as you say, you have to have somebody near the bottom of the table, and it's a very, very difficult situation. But that's why I'd say with Brendan Rodgers, I mean, I don't know, could be some managers near the top of the table could go, but I think in Brendan Rodgers' situation, and Graham Potter, but particularly Rodgers' situation, that his reputation is very good, and the signs are, because he's not going to be backed by the board, he could be one to go. and his reputation would be ruined. You know, whereas if he got out now, he'd be looked at as a manager who got out, saw things weren't being done the way they should be done.
Yeah.
But his reputation is intact.
It's funny, isn't it? It's all about the perception. To go back to Potter, you know, really young manager, doing excellent work. He's basically the same age as Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers has, like, you know, managed Liverpool to nearly win the league, has managed Leicester to nearly qualify for the Champions League, and that's all excellent stuff.
And won the cup with them as well, Leicester.
And had a great time at Celtic, like when it wasn't easy.
Yeah. But the reputation soon goes. You know, if he's not being backed by the board, which he obviously isn't, because the board said it themselves, they're not in the transfer market. They've let one of the best players go. Well, that's a big warning for a manager. Like, he's selling me best players, and I'm not getting players in, you know, to repair. It's a recipe for disaster. So the manager has a choice. Do I get out now and tell them I can't put up with this, or do I hang on and get a payoff? But I would suggest getting out is your best bet, because I think Brendan will get a job because there'll be other clubs in trouble along the way. Yeah,
no, I can totally see how that would happen. And obviously, as I was saying, they play each other. It's September the 3rd, so that's this week. So Villa play Man City, obviously, tomorrow, and Brighton play Leicester, and then they play each other the following week. And you can guarantee that people are going to be talking about swapping of jobs, or certainly if Brendan Rodgers was available, would Villa want him? And I think the clock is ticking on Steven Gerrard, so he's going to have to get a win soon. And it's unlikely it's going to come against Manchester City, but certainly they would be looking at that Leicester game going, oof, that's all of a sudden a must-win game.
Oh, yeah, well, it happens every year, Ger, you know, even at the start of the season. And it's usually because, in my opinion, directors or owners do expect miracles. There's no doubt about that. Look at what we're doing. We haven't done this. We should be up there. And all the clubs, in my experience in football, directors or owners, think they should be up there. Although they don't have the resources to do it, they think they should be up with Manchester United and Manchester City, who have the big resources. So managers are treated very, very badly. I mean, in Potter's case, I mean, he's performed miracles, and he's continuing to do so, despite, I think it's the last 2 years, they've sold at least 5 of the main players here. And that's what Brendan Rodgers has been told. We haven't got money to buy players, so you have to put up with it.
It's
But does he have to put up with it, you see? That's he has the choice.
It's
but he can say, sorry, but I can't continue to do that.
You really have to back yourself to resign, don't you? You've got to make that decision. You know what? Somebody's going to come along with a better position, a better, well-run club, and I'm going to be happy to take that gig.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. If the club is not looking after you, and they're definitely not looking after Brendan, they're told him no money to sell, no money to buy, and they've sold a couple of their best players. I mean, they've sold a player for 80 million, haven't they, the centre back? And I think they're buying somebody for 15 million.
15, yeah.
You know, well, how do you value a player, Ger? You know, like if somebody's prepared to buy 80 for yours, and you're replacing that with a 15 million pound player, well, you'd want to have great scouting, absolutely great scouting, to be able to replace an 80 million player with a 15 million pound player.
Yeah.
And Brendan knows that.
And
the second thing there, Ger, he mightn't be in charge of the transfers.
It doesn't seem that way. Certainly doesn't. He doesn't look like he's been in charge of that. The one last thing on this as well is that, like in previous years, you might have been happy enough that the 3 promoted teams are more than likely going to go straight back down. But the promoted teams, one of them is gone, you'd say, fairly quickly. It's obvious that that's a team that's trying to maybe establish themselves over a 3 or 4 year period. But Fulham look decent. They look a bit lively. And then Nottingham Forest have made a massive investment. They brought in 19 players. And so maybe that goes pear-shaped because you can't settle them all in or whatever. But they're at least putting their money where their mouth is, and they're trying to stay up. So it's no guarantee that Leicester won't get caught into a relegation battle this year.
Oh, no, Leicester you mean Leicester now? Leicester in a battle. No, well, at least now Forest have had a go for the manager.
Yeah.
You know, they are spending a few quid. You know, the other 2 promoted teams, Ger, haven't actually spent. Now, Fulham are in a good position in relation to some of the other teams that have been, Bournemouth, for example.
Yeah.
Right, but Forest, to be fair to them, the owners have backed him with money.
145 million Forest have spent.
You know,
it's a lot of cash.
Yeah, it's a lot of cash, and they haven't made they made a reasonable start, but at least they've given him a chance. Whereas Bournemouth, they're saying to Scott Parker, we've got no money, we're not going to buy players, so you have to put up with it. And he's saying, well, I told you we needed more money to stay up, because he did a miracle.
Yeah,
performed a miracle getting them up last year.
Yeah.
So, but they didn't say, well, we're sacking you because you were cheeky, or as a result at Liverpool. They're sacking you because you've gone public and saying that we need players, and that's why they sacked him.
Yeah, you can't tell the truth.
He was getting too big for his boots, you know.
I want to move on and talk about a couple of the other big teams, to Chelsea and Manchester United. If anybody wants to get involved, 53106 is the text number. Football and Off the Ball is brought to you by Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more live on Sky Sports. Manchester United have had 2 scratchy 1-0 wins since they beat Liverpool. Exactly the type of performances that they needed to back up the performance, or certainly exactly the type of results they needed to back up the performance and result against Liverpool. What have you made of them since that Liverpool game, John?
Well, they've won 3 on the bounce, Ger. And this is a big job that Ten Hag has taken over. And he's good for problems to solve. I think one of the biggest problems he had was Ronaldo. Ronaldo said from the start he wanted to go, right? Now, in my opinion, he should have said, right, well, off you go, get out. He hasn't. But he sort of controlled him. I mean, he has him on the bench. He hasn't played him. I think the team have improved spirit-wise and all the things that you need to be winning matches, Ger. So I think he has him under control in relation to the other players. I mean, Ronaldo was a very, very influential person in the dressing room. And at the start of the season, he was taken off at half-time and went home. You know, he can't run a team like that, Ger, you know. Now, I think he's got a grip of him now, and I think you can see the spirit on the pitch. So it does take time. There's no doubt for any new manager to come into a club like Manchester United and turn it round. But he has won 3 on the bounce now, which means he gets the crowd off his back. It's an improvement, and they should go on to be better now, I think, Ger. But it's not easy. It's never easy taking over Manchester United in the position that they were in. But he looks like he's getting a grip of the job now, and that's what you have to do. But it looks better.
Yeah, it looks much better. The 1-0 away wins, like, okay, it's at Southampton and it's at Leicester, and back in the day you chalked Man United in for automatic victories on those games, but actually you can't do that anymore. You know, like, I know we're talking about Leicester and the difficulties they've had, but
yeah, but you can't, Ger. I mean, don't forget, it's only a few weeks ago where they were beaten 4-0 at Brentford. Manchester United.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean. So there has been progress made. He's actually won 3 matches. Well, that's a start to get on the go. At least he's done that. You know, he's made a few changes to the team. He's brought a couple of players in, but at least they've got a spirit now. You know, they didn't a few weeks ago. They had nothing going for them.
No.
So it does take time, Jared. It's a big job, United, as we know, but at least he's made a start.
It's also very quickly become his changing room, and so he signed 5 or 6 players. There are 5 or 6 players from last season gone. There are a few leaders in the team who were most important, undroppable. Harry Maguire, the captain, and Ronaldo, who you say. Even Luke Shaw played almost every game last year. Yeah. He comes in, they don't play well, they get beaten 4-0. It's like, right, you had your chance. I gave you an opportunity. You got beaten 4-0 at Brentford. It's never happened in our history before. So off you go, you're not getting in the team.
Yeah, it takes time. When you go into a club, like when I went into management force at West Brom, you have preconceived ideas about players, because I'd played against the lads at West Brom for over 10 years. But I was amazed when I went. Some of the lads I didn't fancy at all actually were good, and some I thought were really good weren't good at all. So you have to play them. It takes a little bit of time, especially as a new manager, to come in. You actually have to see them. You know, can he do it? Can he not do it? And he had a big job to do going in there. So he's won 3 on the bounce. So it could be, and time will tell, Ger, where that is a change for him. At least they've showed a spirit. They've won matches from only just a few weeks ago. So it might be the start of something that's really, really good for Manchester United with this manager. But we'll wait and see.
Yeah, it's obviously very early. There's, they've got Arsenal this weekend. Arsenal are playing really well. Arsenal could easily beat them. And that doesn't mean that he's a bad manager. It just might mean that Arsenal are slightly ahead of them at the moment.
Yes, it takes time. He's only in a few weeks. No, it's only in a few weeks. I think it takes about 3 to 4 months to really get to know what the players are like, what response you're getting, players that you can get in. It's very, very early days, but it's encouraging. In the last 3 matches, they've got 9 points. That's a biggie at the moment for him.
Yeah, and it certainly changes the mood and the atmosphere. The ownership was the most important thing, apparently, when it came to Manchester United 2 weeks ago. Now, all of a sudden, the fans are back talking about the team and the excitement. And it's funny how quickly that changes, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. Well, if you go back to Ferguson's time, right, when they were winning everything, they were the same owners. There was nobody complaining about them then.
Certainly fewer protests than there were most recently. The other one that I wanted to ask you about was Thomas Tuchel and the situation he finds himself in. Obviously, the club changed hands because of the war in Ukraine. And since the new owner, Todd Bowley, and his consortium have come in, they've been absolutely massive spenders. They spent 250 million and they were linked with another 250 million's worth of players. And it sounded like they weren't the usual links, that they were genuine links, because most of the stories that they were linked with early came through. They did end up signing Aubameyang. They did end up signing Fofana. So Tuchel is in the happy situation that he's got some credit in the bank with the Chelsea fans. He won a Champions League, and that's history for the club. It's only happened once before. The new owners didn't own the club when Thomas Tuchel won the Champions League. So when you spend $250 million in one window, there's a bit of pressure there.
Well, there's pressure on every manager, Ger, and some more than others, and he'd be one of them. But the question I always ask is, has he bought the players? This is what you've got to be very, very careful about. The new owners are coming in, and he's very high profile, one of them anyway. Are they his choices? Because the manager, in my opinion, should be in charge of comings and goings. They're his team. He has to play, and I'm not so sure that's the case. But again, we'll wait and see. But I've gone off him in the last few weeks with the episode with Conte.
Right.
At Spurs. I thought he was totally in the wrong, and he's still going on about it. That it was just as much Conte's fault as his. And what he was saying at the end of that match, Ger, was, you look me in your eyes when you're shaking my hand. I mean, you ever hear anything so childish in all your life? And some of the comments he's made since, I think it's something gone wrong in his head. I mean, he spoke about the Leeds match when they were beaten 3-0, and said they deserved to win that match, or words to that effect. He's gone a bit odd. I think he's a highly strung fella, but they spent a lot of money. But you'd have to ask, I keep asking, has he spent the money, or have these been his choices, or have they been the director's choice in it? Because when you want to build a team, every manager has always has a dream, a dream team. This is what I need to do. This is what I need for that position. Now, if somebody else is buying the players in, you don't fulfill that vision. Now, they're buying top quality players, but is Aubameyang going to be the nuisance he was at Arsenal, or is he going to be the real deal for them?
It's hard to know, right? Aubameyang, I think, probably was one of his signings, because they do have a relationship from Dortmund, and Aubameyang obviously fell out with Dortmund, but that's after Tuchel had gone, apparently. So we'll see with that one. Like, there's a good chance.
Yeah, we'll see. But generally speaking, when they're buying so many players, and people come in as the new owners and have the money, Ger, most of the time, in my experience, they don't respect the manager's position.
And they want their own man, right?
But again, we'll wait and see. Well, they have their own opinion. Everybody has their own opinion about football, Ger.
Yeah, especially if you've spent 250 million.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's their money. It's not Tuchel's money. That's the way they think of it. You know, that's been my experience in football. Anyway.
So you'd say the clock is ticking on Tuchel this time. It feels like it.
Yeah, straight away.
And it seems kind of ridiculous because he did win the Champions League. Like, that's the bit where he's not going to get any credit for winning the Champions League because he didn't actually do it for this owner.
No, and that's 2 years ago. That's a lifetime of football, Ger. You can see what's happened to Chelsea. Chelsea in the last 12 months have changed dramatically. The ownership has changed. They're spending a lot of money. Who's spending the money? I would guess that it's the main owner there has made the big choices with the players.
Yeah,
because everybody has their opinion about football, Ger. Everybody. That was my experience in management with the directors and that. Everybody has their opinion on it, and if they're spending the money, it's their money.
Yeah, it's
not Tuchel's money. You know, that's what I found in management. Like, you could say, well, I want Joe Bloggs. He's at my time it might have been 20 grand, 30 grand, right? And definitely at the board, it'd say, well, I don't fancy him. I found that myself. That was one of the experiences I found, because when we were looking for a player at West Brom, when I was looking at a player, we didn't have any money, right? And then there was a board meeting later on, and I suggested a player, and we did have a few bob, but the thing was we didn't have any money, right?
Yeah.
So one of the directors came in to me next day in the office, and he said, I think we should go for Joe Bloggs. And I'd say, well, what's the point? We've no money. He said, I think we could raise the money for him.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I said, well, hang on a minute. If I fancy the player and you don't, we've no money. But if you fancy the player, we do have money. Now, that was my experience of it, and I think that happens in all clubs. And it could very well happen with Tuchel, because this guy is putting his own money into it. And he's very, very high profile. So I don't think he's going to Tuchel and saying, look, Joe Bloggs is available. Would you fancy him? Do you want him? I think Tuchel has been given the players. That's my take on it, anyway.
He is very high profile.
Very high profile.
Which is...
And my experience in management and players in management here, everybody has a vision of what they want to do with the team, how they want the team to play. And the only way they can do that is getting in the players that you want, not the players that somebody else wants, because then your vision is gone.
So, actually, to round this all back, you know, we were talking about managers who are under pressure and how long they're going to be in the job. You wouldn't be terribly surprised if Tuchel wasn't there at the end of the season. Well,
again, he's in his position. Do you know what I mean, Ger? He's probably been well paid. Do I put up with the job? Do I go on principle? I'm not having this, and I go somewhere else. That's up to him, you know. But a lot of managers I know have left because of the situation that, see, what's happened in football since my time, you have a director of football, Ger, right? And the director of football is usually the director's director of football. He's not the manager's director of football.
No, he's getting paid by the owners of the club.
Exactly. So he is responsible to them. So when he's responsible to them, they get the players in that they want. But the manager, if it's not a good buy, takes the responsibility for it. And he can say, well, I didn't buy him. But you don't hear any of the managers saying that.
No.
They just put up with it, or they're sacked.
Yeah, Antonio.
But that's what's happened. So when they introduced the director, there was no director of football in my day, right? But then they introduced the director of football because he was their director of football. Ferguson was one of the good guys in that the director that he had really did what Ferguson wanted. But what can happen to a manager who has a director of football? The player that he wants is too dear, doesn't want him, and the director of football is responsible to the directors, not to the manager. But then the manager, if things go wrong, he takes the responsibility for it.
And the circle never ends.
And it never ends.
John, it's a really interesting weekend of football. I hope you enjoy every second of it. Thanks a million for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Ger.
Great to talk to you again, John. Thanks.
And you, Ger. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye,
take care.
Bye.